Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dennis, and this is my art channel. Today, we're going to be doing a little watercolor painting. This is a hot press. Is it hot press? It's the rougher kind of watercolor paper. I believe it's hot press. I'll make a note in the description if I'm wrong. But it's a 6x8 piece of paper, and it is a watercolor pad. It is my preferred kind of watercolor method, is using the pads. The difference between this and like a normal sketchbook for watercolor or a normal binding is that this one is, well, this particular pad is glued on two sides, the top and the bottom, in this landscape orientation, and the arches is glued on all four sides. And what that does is, no matter how much water you use when painting, it'll end up stretching, it'll warp during the process, but because it's glued in place, it'll always go back to its original position. And I find that these papers are heavier weight and tend to hold their shape a little bit better, preventing it from warping. I feel like it makes it a little easier to display these paintings as well when they're able to just be hung without frame, if that suits the vibe of wherever they might be living. But yeah, I'm going right in with the colors that feel right, and with a lot of water as well. You can see a lot of the spread as each color gets added. It floats out and finds all sorts of areas, and adding a color like a blue on a yellow is turning into a new kind of green. I quite like the kind of teal color that is sort of developing between the light kind of purple and blue that's combining. Yeah, very, I would say hyper saturated, this paper. You can actually see the line of water on the bottom. Since I am painting on a drafting table, it is an inclined surface a little bit, so the water is able to float down, and it all starts to sit as like a little line on the bottom, and I can use it as a little reservoir of mixed paint and sort of develop the image that way as well. You'll see that come up as the painting progresses. Switched brushes now to something a heck of a lot finer. This is a rigger brush, and I believe it's a size 6. Quite a long bristle brush, but also stays at a point, so it's able to make these kind of thick to thin marks. Or pressing in, it can just drop a lot of paint, since it is big, relatively big for this kind of a brush. I think this is my favorite brush to use, although I feel like I don't use it too often on this YouTube thing, because I don't know, I feel like I've been working on larger size paintings recently, and I pulled it out on occasion, but I think this is the first painting of recent that is mainly going to be done using this brush. And you can see the kind of language that this brush has. It's got a very fine stroke that just sort of plane across the page with the hand. It's one of the funnest brushes that I have, I think. Just watching it sort of trail along and flick left, flick right, whatever feels right. It's got very expressive marks, and I enjoy painting with it. Let me know in the comments how you feel watching it. The colors are sort of drying in the back layer now. You can see that as I cut through with the wet brush, but dry on paint, it leaves sort of like a negative mark where it's removing the color where there used to be a high level of saturation. And I'm using this to my advantage to try to create depth on this painting and develop the world that I am creating, whatever that means. I feel like I'm not going for any particular symbolism here, but you know, I can't help but feel like there is something organic and kind of natural in my kind of viney nature of these things, but just because it's a squiggly line doesn't mean that it's vine. It could be a snake, you know. Who knows, this could be some over the air scene and these are the snakes in the sky. Something crazy like that. I'm always up for interpretations on these kind of very abstract paintings of mine, because I feel like I'm putting mainly for myself, mainly putting in my emotions. My emotional state is guiding this process, and I'm feeling what kind of color is right, what intensity of stroke is right, if my eye is being drawn into the composition in a way that is, you know, if it feels good. I really like, for me, I have a run on a simple kind of philosophy that painting is painting is painting. You don't have to do more than just paint, because you know what it is. If you're painting, you're using a brush, you're using some sort of paints. Those paints are a combination of a binder and pigment, and all of this could be emulated in a digital space as well. I feel like digital painting can be just as valid as the work that I'm doing right here on a traditional kind of medium, the cotton, paper, and I don't know what they use to bind watercolors, honestly, beyond just, is it just pure pigment in these palettes? I feel like there's got to be a little bit more in there. I know that for the Sennelier they use a little bit of honey as a binder. Helps for kind of getting all the colors to mix nice too. But I digress. I feel like there's a certain lightness that develops using a lot of water on a painting like this, but to counteract that, as it dries, I have to go in with some of these kind of more saturated, higher pigment strokes, so that there's a bit more direction in the painting and somewhere to kind of move for your eyes. And now that I see myself working on these edges, I really feel like the painting is getting to its kind of last stages. Filling in some spots where there might be just bare paper, as it's spoke about this in the last video, that sometimes it dries and it sort of pulls in, and some areas, especially on this kind of rough paper, don't get color, don't get any of the pigment. They just they get a little bit wet, but they stay white, the color of the paper. So I gotta go back afterwards and try to hit those spots with just a little bit of watercolor. Any pigment will do, but it'll make the whole painting feel more like it's separate from the medium that constrains it. Since, I mean, there's no denying that this is just a bunch of colors on a piece of paper. But if you can, suspend the belief that there's a paper behind all the pigment, then really you could believe that there's just a world here that is developed deeper than just a single layer on a piece of paper. Yeah, that's, I guess, kind of the philosophy behind some of the painting, some of the art. Maybe we'll get deeper into that as the channel and these videos progress. I think it's important to sort of stay grounded when it comes to creation of just, how we create, what we're doing all this for. And in this one, I don't know if I was doing it 100% for me, because I was thinking of you guys. I was thinking about making something nice for the channel. So thank you so much for being here and watching this process with me. This is some close-ups of the still wet painting. You'll have to stay tuned to the next week if you want to see the dry finished product. But yeah, thank you once again for watching. You know how the YouTube stuff works. Please give it a like if you liked it, comment what your thoughts are, and subscribe if this is your first time. Hope to see you next week. Drop videos every Friday. Take care. Peace.